We talked last week about the press pretty much going crazy over that decision, over their interpretation of a decision to uphold a prosecution of this guy that left a headhunting firm and then got the password from someone who was still there and clearly broke the law in breaking into that company's confidential data using this password. And so the way the majority opinion was written by those three judges in the Ninth Circuit, you could, I mean, in the best interpretation, they created some gray area where it really did seem like if you shared your Netflix password with someone, you could be in violation of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, which to everyone felt like, okay, wait a minute, there's something wrong here between, giving my girlfriend my Netflix password and going to prison. So the EFF picked up a second decision made by a different set of three judges on the same Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which, as the EFF said, backs away from dangerous password sharing decision, but still leaves even more confusion about what the CFAA, the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, actually means in the law. What the EFF wrote was three judges of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals have taken a step back from criminalizing password sharing, limiting the dangerous rationale of a decision issued by a panel of three different judges of the same court the previous week. That's good, but the new decision leaves so many unanswered questions that it's clear we need what they called en banc review, which means all of the judges.
Oh,
they said,
in the bench, by the bench.
Right.
Yeah.
All 11 judges, not just three. So that would allow the court to issue clear and limited interpretation of this notoriously vague federal hacking statute, which is at the heart of both cases, the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. And then the EFF said, to recap, the court's language in last week's case, that is the week previous, was U.S. versus Nosal, was so broad that it seemed to make it a federal crime to use someone else's password, even with their knowledge and permission. In the new decision, in a case called Facebook versus Power Ventures, a separate Ninth Circuit panel acknowledged that a computer user can provide another person with valid authorization to use their username and password, which, that comports with how we would think this should be interpreted. Like, if someone who has authorization gives theirs to someone else for their use, then okay. So, but again, still there's some gray zone. So they said, that's the good news. But the decision leaves unanswered so many other questions about how the law can be interpreted, and its rationale is so confusing that it's an invitation for more dangerous litigation and prosecutions under the CFAA. The CFAA makes it illegal to engage in, quote, unauthorized access, unquote, to any computer connected to the internet. But the statute doesn't say what unauthorized access means or make clear where authorization must come from. So, and we've talked about this many times, this is the real problem when laws are left vague and having, I'm sort of now fascinated by the political process that runs this country. And so I've watched laws that can only be passed when some of the teeth is taken out of them. And so compromise in Congress ends up taking what was originally, you can imagine the original drafters may have had very clear definitions, but they were unable to get it to pass if it was worded that way. And so it went through committee and went back and forth and around, and it got like watered down so that it was finally weak enough that they could get a majority. But then it's also, unfortunately, then imposed upon the legal system to figure out what this language means when all of the specification was deliberately taken out of it. So that's our system.